This is a space where you can remove the mask and be your true self. You're now entering a judgment-free zone where no topics are off limits. I am your host, Darnique, and your access has now been granted. Welcome to the Vulnerable Room. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Vulnerable Room podcast. I'm really happy to be back with you all today. And before we dive into today's conversation, I just want to take a moment to catch you up on a few things. But before I get into that, I really and truly hope that all of you are taking care of yourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because it's so much that's going on in the political world that's spilling over into everyone's daily lives. It is ghetto with a capital G, okay? And if you've been paying attention to what's been happening in corporate America lately, you know it's been wild. We're seeing a lot of layoffs across industries, budgets are getting slashed, positions are being cut, and a lot of it is tied to some of the changes in policies being pushed by Trump's administration. It's a really uncertain time for a lot of people. Folks are getting laid off left and right. Companies are restructuring, and the energy in a lot of workplaces is heavy right now. I can attest to it, okay? I just want to name that because if you're feeling it, whether you're directly impacted or just witnessing it, you're not alone. That's actually a part of why today's conversation feels so timely. Now, on a lighter note, while I don't have a book review for you this episode, I do want to let you know that the book club is open for new members. Ew. We're about to start a brand new book, and we're finishing up a book at the moment. So if you've been thinking about joining, now's the perfect time. I'll have the link to join in the show notes, or you could just feel free to DM me. You knocked, and I answered. And y'all know what time it is. It is time for the Room for Advice segment. And I feel as though this question that was raised ties super well into today's conversation. So let's not waste no time. Let's get straight into it.
Hey girl, this is Naomi. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, but now I live in Dallas or whatever. So my question pertains to the work environment, and it's kind of a two-part question. The first question is, what advice do you have for people who are trying to remain their authentic self in a work environment where no one looks like you, no one talks like you, no one has the same experiences like you? So you often find yourself code switching, and I don't want to do that. So, what advice do you have for someone who's trying to remain their authentic self in that type of environment? And my second question is, how do you differentiate between your calling, and complacency? Like, often in jobs, we have that moment where we're like, is this what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life, or am I being complacent? So, how do you think, or how do you differentiate between the two? Thank you.
Naomi girl, first of all, thank you so much for this question. You really brought two powerful topics to the table, and I'm so glad you did because you are definitely not alone in this. Let's start with the first part. How do you stay authentic in a work environment when no one looks like you, talks like you, or shares your experiences? Listen, I've been there, and I'm currently still there. I used to code switch too. I used to shrink, shift, and constantly manage how I showed up in spaces just to feel like I quote unquote fit in. And I'll be real with you, it was exhausting. At some point, I realized I was doing myself a disservice. I was diluting my power just to make other people comfortable. And for what? So, my advice to you is don't code switch. You deserve to show up as your full, authentic self every day. And if an environment makes you feel like you can't do that, that's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of the environment. You are not made to fit into spaces that were never built with you in mind, okay? You are made to shift those spaces just by existing as you are. It doesn't mean you have to share every part of yourself with everybody. Boundaries are still important, but you get to decide what parts of you show up, and not out of survival, but out of choice and power. Now, for your second question, and woo, I feel like this was a deep one. How do you differentiate between your calling and complacency? I love this question because it forces us to get real with ourselves. For me, the difference between a calling and complacency often shows up in how I feel deep down. If you're feeling stretched, challenged, growing even when it's uncomfortable, you might be operating in your calling. If you're feeling stuck, numb, just going through the motions with no real sense of purpose or passion, that might be a sign of complacency. One thing you can ask yourself is, does this still align with the bigger vision I have for my life? Or am I just staying because it's comfortable and I'm scared of what's next? Growth usually feels uncomfortable, but it still feels alive. Complacency Complacency feels safe, but it's a little dead inside. And it's okay to admit when it's time to move on. Sometimes what was your calling for one season has done its job, girl, and you're being called to something new. So listen to your body, listen to your spirit. You usually already know. It's just about trusting yourself enough to honor what you hear. Thank you again, Nay, for being vulnerable and for trusting me with your questions. I hope this helped. Today's episode is entitled Corporate But Make It Black. I have a very special guest by the name of Shanae Brown. She is the executive coach and founder of No Cream in This Coffee. Shanae Brown is a New York City based executive coach, workshop facilitator, and the visionary behind No Cream in This Coffee, a learning and development company that provides culturally relevant career coaching for Black women and historically overlooked professionals navigating corporate America in tech. After nearly a decade in human resources and earning a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology, Shanae witnessed firsthand the workplace disparities Black women face and decided to take action. She now coaches and trains leaders at some of the world's biggest brands, including Calendly and Chick-fil-A. We love a good Chick-fil-A. I know that's right. Helping underrepresented professionals overcome common workplace challenges so they can lead with confidence, influence others, and drive meaningful change along with business growth. Shanae's on a mission to help professionals thrive in their careers, guided by a simple philosophy: stop working twice as hard, start working twice as smart. Shanae, welcome to the Vulnerable Room.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
No problem. I'm happy we're able to finally do this because I'm sure this is a topic a lot of people experience on a daily that look like us.
Yes, absolutely.
So, because we're about to get into some real talk, but before we start spilling the tea, I would like for you to tell the listeners a little about yourself and your journey into corporate America, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I'm Shanae Brown. I am an executive coach and the founder of No Cream in This Coffee. So we are a learning and development company that provides culturally relevant career coaching for Black women in corporate and tech. And I started that about 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And previously, I worked in HR. So I was a HR business partner. I worked in music, I've worked in tech and financial services. And one of the things that I saw as an HR business partner was that Black women did not have access to a lot of the opportunities that our white counterparts had. And I wanted to do something about that. I wanted to make sure that one, we knew how to navigate the workplace. I think that just dealing with when you're an HR business partner, when you're dealing with employee relations issues and managers are coming to you to ask you, how do I talk to my employee about this? Or how do I navigate this challenge with an employee? It's very interesting the type of cases that come across, your desk. And one in particular that stands out to me was this people leader who was a woman of color. And I think it's important for me to say that
Okay.
because sometimes we have an expectation of other people of color that
Yeah.
they just get it. And that is not the case. But this people leader who she wanted to talk to me about letting go a woman because of her hair.
Wow.
And that was something that really infuriated me. And I think what infuriated me even more was that another HR person in the room was like, well, we'll see what we can do. And
What?
I was like, wait, what is happening? What is
Yeah.
happening? So I was pissed off. And I think that I hit it well, probably not. My facial expressions probably gave it away. But I remember leaving the room and telling my manager, like, this is not right. And I went back to that people leader to let her know that what she was proposing was actually illegal and that it violated the New York City human rights law, which
Oh,
protects Black women, not just Black women, but New York City workers from hair discrimination. So, and I think it was put in place to protect Black women. So that's why I said that, because the law states that you are allowed to wear your hair to work in its natural state.
I didn't even know that was a law. So I'm learning something
Wow.
today.
Well, yeah, neither did the other HR person who was in the room, right? And I got this feeling that came over me. One, I think we should always follow our frustration
Yeah.
because I think frustration just leads to cues of like what we're supposed to focus on, what's going to drive us. But it also led me to think like, damn, if I wasn't in the room, what the hell would have happened, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Probably would have got.
that would have been a woman without a job.
Yeah.
Someone could have said, let's see what we can do about this. You know what I mean? So that really lit a fire under me, and just seeing some of the disparities
Yeah.
and seeing how we are unprotected. I wanted to create something where it was going to equip so many Black women with tools and language and strategies with how to advocate for themselves, how to go after what they want, how to claim their seat at the table. And that's what I'm doing today.
Love it. I love it because, like you said, we need more of this within our community, and it's already tough enough being black, but also being like a black woman, and sometimes even in a male dominating space, it's tough. And to be
It is.
discriminated just by your hair and not even because of your work ethic is very concerning.
It is. It
Yeah.
is really concerning. And I think what made it more concerning for me, I'm like, damn, we in New York. I'm like, ain't racism supposed to be a little more discreet than this?
Nowadays, that's out the window. Some people are just very loud with it and they don't care. But I'm glad that you was a part um of that whole scenario. Like you were the voice of reason, basically.
Yeah, I typically am. And I think that that has been my role in corporate America. I think I don't shy away from challenging the status quo. I don't shy away from offering different opinions. I don't shy away from, like, literally in my previous performance reviews, I've been out of corporate for about 4 years, but in all of my performance reviews, it's like Shanae challenges us to think differently.
Mm,
And I think that's something that I do really well. And I am so glad that I was in that position to advocate for another woman, but I won't always be in that position. And I'm not in that position today. So I think we have to learn how to advocate for ourselves.
absolutely. And that leads me into the reality of being a black woman in corporate America. So let's set the stage a little bit. We know corporate America isn't exactly designed with us in mind. So let's start with some real life truths. Let's keep it 100. What was like the biggest WTF moment you've had as a black woman in corporate, aside from the example like you just shared with us?
Well, I think that was the biggest
Okay.
like moment. I think that was the biggest like what the like is this real?
Mm,
I don't think I've had another moment that matched that.
okay. Okay. I have one similar, kind of like what I'm dealing with now. I've seen my, I guess you could call him my director of the department. I feel like he has like a power, like a power trip.
Mm.
And he likes the idea of having the power to fire and hire people. And he likes having the idea as well of just trying to control everything. And if it's not his way, it gets real inappropriate. HR has been down to my department so many times since I started there, but it's just like nothing is getting done because, I guess he's like the face of the department and
Yep.
he's doing a good job and, he's making the organization look great. But, excuse me, the turnover rate in the department is horrible because he doesn't know how to deal with his emotions professionally. And I would say, and it's clear as day, like he puts people against each other. He likes that competitive energy, and it just makes
Yeah.
the environment toxic.
And it sounds like he's ego driven, and that's a dangerous game to play.
Yes, very much so. And I just try to, I come in every morning, I do what's asked of me. I say good morning, I put my AirPods in, I listen to my audiobook or I listen to music, and I just do my work because it's too much drama. I can't.
Yeah, no, I feel you. But if I'm being like completely honest, like I haven't had too many terrible experiences, right? Like I've worked at several different companies, and the only one I was miserable at was one company.
Mm.
And I worked on a team that they just did stupid shit. And I don't know if I could curse,
No,
but
you're fine.
like
You're fine. Be yourself.
I remember one time, and when I say like stupid shit, I mean like you're probably gonna be like, this is so stupid. My manager, she was like, "Hey, let's go across the street and get some coffee for the team."
Okay.
And I was like, "Okay." And when I went with her, we're at the coffee shop, and she said, "What do you want?" And I was like, I don't want anything." She was like, "Can you get something so that way people don't say that you're not a team player?"
What?
And I was like, "Because I don't want coffee?" And at
What?
the time, I did not drink coffee. Like, this was early in my 20s, and I was just like, because I don't want coffee, that makes me not a team player. And I was like, I think this is stupid. Like, this has
No,
to
for
be
real.
so stupid. And the logic here, I'm like, there is none. There is none. And that job, that same job, actually caught somebody talking shit about me on the phone. The phone was on speaker, and it was a coworker. He had said something like, he was telling my manager this, and I walked into her office, but she had the phone on speaker. I guess she didn't know he was going to talk shit about me. But I walked into the office and I hear him saying, I was never really on the Shanae train before, but she's starting
Oh,
to impress
excuse
me.
me?
I was like, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Wow.
What,
First of
like,
all, what if you didn't even have money to buy coffee?
no, the company was buying it.
Oh,
That
okay.
wasn't the case. I just didn't want it. And I should be allowed to say, I don't want to drink something that I do not
Absolutely.
want.
Yeah, the answer is no. Was no.
But that environment showed me how insecure people are. It showed me how petty people can get. It also showed me that, like, I feel like that was the only place where, you know how, like, when you work somewhere, it's like you have, like, friends. Like, I was not friends with my team.
Okay.
It wasn't until they started hiring more people, and they actually hired one of my friends we're still friends till this day. And when he came in, we just hit it off, right? Black guy from the Bronx, and we were just like we got each other. We understood each other. And you would think that someone or my team would be happy that, oh wow, like she's excited or she's laughing or smiling.
Hmm.
And anytime we would talk and like, what are you guys doing? You should be working. It was just like they was hating. They was hating. Like, I think that was the biggest group of haters I've ever worked with. The biggest group of haters.
I honestly I feel like if you're having if you're having fun in the workplace and or if you and your coworker are having y'all are forming a great rapport with one another and someone is on the outside looking in, I feel like they purposely find issues, meaning like they will, I guess you could say, nitpick.
They did. That's exactly what they did. I was like, I gotta get the hell up out of here.
Run and tell that. Like, that's what I call them. Run and tell that. They'll run and say, Zarnique is here, running her mouth. She ain't doing no work. Her productivity is low for the day. And it's like, I'm doing my work, but I can't talk to my coworkers.
Yeah, and I would say that's bullshit because if anybody said that about me, I got promoted there. I had little spot bonuses that they gave me. One of my HR leaders who from that company, we ended up forming a really great relationship. But I did really well on something and she was like, treat yourself to a nice dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me the company card and was like, you deserve a nice dinner. At the time, me and my boyfriend went to this really nice, expensive steak restaurant, and we were like, we gonna order what we want.
As you should. As you should. So my next question to you is, have you ever experienced that quote unquote black woman tax where you must work twice as hard for half the credit? And how did you handle it?
If I did, it's not known to me
Okay.
because I feel like I was always recognized for my work. Now, do I think that I got paid enough in certain environments? No. So when I worked in the music industry, I got promoted, but my promotion was like I don't even know what the percentage of the increase was, but it wasn't substantial at all. However, that was the norm in that company. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to survive or like thrive here. So, and I love, like, that was one of my favorite jobs. I had community, I had sisterhood, I had work aunties, I had it all. But I was like, the money, okay? The money's not moneying. And I left there to go to the company that I was just talking about. But in terms of working twice as hard and receiving half the credit, I don't think I receive half the credit because when I work my ass off, like I'm working my ass off with the intention that there's going to be a payoff. So the last company that I worked at before I became a corporate dropout, my second month on the job, I got a spot bonus. Second month.
Okay.
And I was given that spot bonus by the chief marketing officer. So when it comes to a coin, I'm going to go get it. And I also just don't believe in working twice as hard. Like, and that's something that I teach my clients. I'm like, no, we work twice as smart, right? You
Mhm.
don't work twice as hard because I think that is the biggest misconception when you come in and enter corporate America. We say yes to everything, right? We're like, I want to be approachable. I want to get promoted. But then you see it's more strategy than the actual like work piece. So
Mhm.
I've always implemented self care practices. I made that known to my team. I would even send them articles like, here's what you all should be doing for self care because the way they were working, I'm like, I'm not about to be on this time. I'm not team no sleep. I'm not staying till 10 p.m. All this other shit that y'all are doing to prove you're worthy and to prove you're hard workers. No, let's do this in a smarter way. So yeah, I don't know if I ever felt like I didn't get my credit. Like if it's a bag, I'm snatching it up.
Period. Period. Heard you very loud and clear. And that spot bonus, this position I'm in now, this was my first time receiving one. And I think it was only because, and this is where for me, the Black woman tax come in because when I came in, my coworker, she had to go on FMLA because she got injured. So I was learning my new role plus doing her role. And it was a lot. It was a lot. Again, dealing with the director of the department didn't make it any easier. So the second go round, when my same coworker had to go on FMLA to get surgery, that's when I put my foot down. I was like, okay, I understand, people can't, help what happens in life. I understand she has to get a surgery. I get it. However, when is Darnique going to be able to really hone in on her position and learn it in and out without having any outside distractions? Meaning, like, because my coworker, she's an executive assistant to the director, so I had to, wear multiple hats, like I said. So I just wanted to be able just to focus on my new role.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was very vocal about it. And because of that, I felt like that was the only reason why I got my spot bonus. Like, yeah, give me the money. But at the end of the day, if I didn't say anything, would you guys have acknowledged my hard work? That's the
See,
question. Yeah.
that's tricky, right? I mean, the good news is, and you should be so proud of yourself that you did speak up for yourself, because there's somebody probably who's going to listen to this and, they're like, I could advocate for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hearing you say that. So I think that that is beautiful that you took that step
Thank
to
you.
advocate for yourself. Now, as somebody who has been thrown into I don't know. I can't remember if there was a job where I had like a slow onboarding. Like I don't know if that has ever happened. Like I
Okay.
can't remember. And definitely did not happen the last company I worked for, because when I started that job, we were in the midst of performance evaluation. And the other HR person on the team, I think a parent had passed away, so she could not lead the performance calibrations with our senior leaders. So this is week two. I
Okay.
don't know anything about any employee, any manager, nothing. And my manager, who I worked with at a previous company, the one that I was just telling you about, my manager said, "Well, you're gonna lead it,"
Okay.
and just threw me in it. Just threw me in it. And one thing I know about me is like if you throw me in the water, I'm a swim. I may
Period.
I may not float. I may not float, especially if it's like my first time, but I'm going to swim. I'm going to do everything can to swim. And I'm actually glad she did that, looking back on it, because here I was, week 2 on this job, coming in with the senior leaders in marketing, because that was the business group that I supported. I'm like leading this meeting, but the way I led it with such honesty and was like, listen, I don't know anything about any of the employees here.
Mm.
Right. The data tells me this. So I am trusting you all to challenge each other, challenge the performance ratings for some of the folks. I want us to be clear on why we're giving, folks certain performance ratings. I may have questions, but I don't know because I was not here the previous year. And I think they really respected that. And I was still able to drive the conversation, but also like really build some credibility early. So although you did not have the chance to learn your role, you also proved to yourself and to your team that you could handle it. Right.
Mhm.
And I think it just sucks that you had to advocate for the performance, for the spot bonus, right? I think that piece sucks because your leader should have saw that and said, I see her working, I see her doing 2 jobs. This is not the norm. This is not what she was hired to do. This is also unfair, right? So you would think a leader would step up and give you that recognition. But I mean, we're talking about the experiences of Black women in corporate America, right? And we sometimes our hard work goes unnoticed. So we have to advocate for ourselves. So kudos to you for doing that.
I thank you so much because it's very tough sometimes. Like I always go back and forth with myself. Like, and well, in this example, like, do I want to say anything? Like, do I want to stir the pot? Like, this could
Stir
go.
it.
Way.
Stir.
I'm here. Like, this could go one or two ways. But I just felt like, no, y'all. I know y'all see me in here busting like sweat bullets. Okay, y'all see the blood, sweat, and tears. Y'all see, like, I just got here and I'm really holding it down. So yeah, give me
Feel
my.
like you have to shoot your shot. Like, I remember the first job I ever left. This is when I worked in the music industry, and I knew their bonus policy, right? Like, you had to be there when the bonuses were paid out. I was leaving in August, and I still sent an email asking if I can get a prorated bonus. Now, they told me no, but I still asked,
I have never
right?
seen that.
I still ask, like, would it be possible to still get my bonus since I've been here 8 out of the 12 months, right? And they told me no, which is okay because I ended up leaving for I want to say about $17,000 more, and that was a huge jump at that time. So, I would look, always shoot your shot.
Yeah, I definitely will continue to do so because, you know, sometimes it's an uncomfortable feeling when you think that my like, you know, my manager at the time, I'm thinking she's going to vouch for me and like, and kind of like, recognize the work that I'm doing. But I felt like, yeah, it was just like, thank you for your hard work, but yeah, moving forward. No, I don't want to sit here and do someone else's work for the second go round. No, absolutely not. Can we like because they didn't want to hire a temp. That was the issue. So they figured, oh, let's just hand it over to Darnique. Okay, great. Are y'all paying me more?
That's the question.
I'm not trying to sit here and do my work and her work too, respectfully. I will continue to stir the pot.
Stir it.
So that leads me into the microaggressions that we experience at work because we know they are alive and well in these office spaces. So the classic quote unquote, can I touch your hair? Or the dreaded quote unquote new hairstyle, who's this? How do you navigate those moments without like snapping?
Well, if anybody is asking to touch your hair in 2025, like I would tell them pick up a book, honestly. Pick
Mm,
up a book and Google is free because what the hell are you doing? Why would you ever ask to touch somebody's hair? And like, I'm not your pet, right? Like, no. But one of the things that I had shared with my team who made comments about my hair. Now, I didn't always feel comfortable saying this, but once I figured out, okay, this is bothering me, this is annoying the shit out of me, I need to address it. So I shared with my team that I don't want to feel like I need to have a press conference with every hairstyle.
mm,
I'm gonna switch it up. You're gonna see me in braids this week, and a couple weeks later, you may see me with a middle part. Like, and I don't want to have to explain that. And I don't wanna have to have conversations about it every time I come into the office, right? So I don't like I did have an instance where this woman touched my hair at a bar. Well, she attempted to. So I was at a bar with a couple of cousins, and we all had box braids. And we're at this bar on Long Island, and she asked my cousin, one of them, she said, "Can I?" Oh, she's like, "Oh, I love your hair. Can I touch it?" Now, my cousin gave her permission.
what?
Listen, we listen and we don't judge.
Okay.
My cousin gave her permission, but then I see this woman's hand come in to touch one of my braids. I said, "Excuse me, She gave you permission. I didn't." And she was like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." You should be. Because what
Yeah.
the hell would possess you to touch me or try to touch me? I don't think she got there yet, but she was close. She was close. And I was like, like I think people have lost their rabbit ass mind.
Yeah.
Um But I think that if anybody is experiencing that, you have to set boundaries. And there's different type of boundaries. When it comes to touching your hair, that is a violation of a physical boundary. Now, if your colleagues do not know that that is your boundary, it is up to you to assert your boundaries.
Okay. That's fair. I had a
Now, they should know. They should know at their grown ass ages. They should know.
That's what I thought too, because this is when I was in my 20s. I didn't know what boundaries were, but this lady asked at work to touch my hair. I had cornrows at the time. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I love your hair. Can I touch it?" I said, "Absolutely not." Cuz one, in my head I'm like, I just got my hair done and my hair is tight. Two, lady, I don't know where your hands been. Three, I'm not your pet.
That
So, no.
for me, the touching the hair piece, like I just feel like if you are asking that question, honestly, I am going to think. Actually, I'm not going to say what I'm going to think.
Mhm.
But because I just can't, my mind does not, I can't compute that, right? But for me, the people who say, I barely recognize you, that shit
That pisses me off.
pisses me off. You barely recognize me. And I remember saying to someone, a coworker who said that, and I was like, well, I did not get cosmetic surgery. So I think everything's still intact. It's just a hair change.
Like your face is still intact, like you said.
Hello.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes people can be so dramatic with like their language and
Yeah.
just lacking the cultural competence. Like
Hmm.
if somebody came up to you and pointed out everything that was different, would you like that? No,
No,
right? You would not like that. Every time you like just say I love your hair and move on.
that's it. Keep it pushing.
But I think one of the microaggressions, and I know we didn't talk about this yet, but yes, hair is a big microaggression. But another one that some of my clients have experienced is being surprised where they went to school. So that
What?
has been, yes. So, like, if a client went to an Ivy League school, right, and somebody's like, oh, wow, you went here? The
Wow.
surprise factor, it's like, that's what makes it a microaggression. Why are you surprised?
Hmm.
Why are you surprised? I mean, I went to a SUNY and a CUNY, and
Sunio Westbury.
hello. I went to a SUNY and I went to CUNY at Brooklyn College for my master's.
Okay.
And I always looked at first I was like, everybody went to all these different schools, and I went to a SUNY and a CUNY, and I'm hearing I'm in a room with people who went to Harvard, or you know what I mean, and like these top Ivy League schools, and then it dawned on me, and I was like, we're in the same room.
Mm,
We're in the same room. You just got more debt.
yeah. That part. I love the honesty because like it's just crazy that some of these things in 2025 is still a surprise to people that's not of color. Like why is it such a surprise at why is it such a shocker, excuse me, at the way that I articulate myself? Why is it a shocker at, the fact that I went to a Ivy League school, or why is it a shocker that I can set boundaries but still be polite about it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's weird and dramatic, like you said.
very, very. I think people love drama.
So, have you ever been labeled as aggressive or intimidating for simply speaking your mind? And if so, how did you respond to that?
Aggressive? No.
Okay.
Intimidating? Yes. But that's not on me. I don't think that's on me. So when people say that, and in the past when people have said that, I didn't own it. Like, I don't think if you find me intimidating, that's not for me to own. But in terms of like aggressive, no, I think I've always had a way of communicating where I could be honest, direct, but like you said, still polite. I mean, at least what I think is polite. Now, somebody else may not think it's polite, right? Because I am from New York and I
Yeah.
am very direct. So sometimes that is going to rub people the wrong way. And then sometimes people are going to respect it. And I would say most times people respect it. And I think because I worked in HR also, like when you work in HR, you sort of have to use very neutral language. So I'm like trained to speak a certain way.
Okay.
So that way, like if an employee is coming to me crying and talking about their manager did this, before I like my instinct is not to like take that employee's side immediately, right? My job as an HR business partner was to get the facts.
Okay.
So the way I communicate is very direct. I'm still going to be compassionate. I'm still going to be polite, but it is going to be clear. So I don't think anyone has told me that I'm aggressive, at least not to my face. Now, if they said it behind my back, that's one thing. But I'm also not somebody who I don't think I have like an aggressive personality. Do I think I have a strong personality? Absolutely. But I don't think it's like really aggressive. At least not now. Now, if you would have met me probably in my teens, that's probably a different story. But now or like working, not so much.
Okay. Okay. I like that you haven't been called that to your face. Like you said, if it was said behind your back, that's between them and God. But I'm glad that
Right.
have to have that uncomfortable like scenario where someone tells you like they feel some form of aggression, because I know for a fact sometimes I have to remind myself when I'm in a workplace, because I tend to talk with, excuse me, as a New Yorker, I talk with my hands.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
Same.
And I find myself like when I feel like my hands are moving too much, I just clasp them together and continue to say what I need to say, especially if it's an intense conversation, because it's been those moments in the workspace that I am in currently. But thankfully, I wasn't called aggressive. However, they probably thought that I was aggressive. Maybe. I don't know. I'm the only black girl there. So as long as it's not said to my face, I really don't care.
Honestly, if they're gonna think that, they're gonna think that anyway. And one of the things that I had learned from my leak teal, she says, if it's not said directly to me, consider it unsaid. And I adopt that. Like if I hear somebody was talking shit, if they didn't say it to me, it's like it's unsaid. If you didn't say it with your chest, I'm not about to put together context clues. I'm not about to put together hints, subliminals, all that stuff I do not do. Like I have a low tolerance for drama. So if somebody did say it or if they are thinking it, that's their ignorance, is their just like I don't know. Like sometimes people will have the thought, and that's okay. If you don't have to work through that. Yeah, I don't think anyone has ever said that about me being an angry black woman or an aggressive, like, or saying I'm unapproachable. I also feel like I was very hyper aware early in my career how black women would be perceived. So I don't think my personality is naturally like that, but I also feel like because early in my career I was sort of, I don't want to say I was trained to code switch, but like I observed how black women moved in the workplace and adopted, this code switching thing,
Oh
right?
gosh.
So I think I was hyper aware of like, okay, we have to move differently here, and that's okay. And I don't know if that's just in corporate America. I remember like if someone would pick up, I mean, someone would call the phone or like, you hear your mom change her voice on the phone, right? Of like, "Hello, yes, this is she." You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid, you hear the code switching. But yeah, no, somebody's gonna think that. Let them think it.
Absolutely. And I live by the mantra, if it's not directed, I don't respect it.
Ooh, yes, clock that tea.
So let's talk about the quote unquote angry black woman stereotype. How do you
Mhm.
balance advocating for yourself without being perceived as difficult?
Okay, so my answer to this is we put so much emphasis on the how am I going to be perceived, right? There's so much emphasis of can I do this and they won't think this, or I don't want them to be mad at me. I don't want them to think that I'm an angry black woman. But I mean, would you rather be at war with yourself?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's how I always look at it. Because I know if I don't speak up and say what's on this mind, I am going to cause a lot of internal, dialogue that I'm not going to like.
Okay.
So for me, the discomfort that I would feel if I don't say it, it outweighs somebody else's discomfort.
Okay.
I am not about to prioritize somebody else's discomfort. And I think sometimes I think the fear around being perceived as an angry black woman is real, right? I think that that is a real fear, especially when you're talking about emotions, especially when you're talking about mistreatment. However, you have to advocate for yourself. And when we're talking about at work, advocate for yourself and then go like tell HR. Make sure it's documented. Tell HR what is going on so you do not have to do it alone.
What's crazy is that I forgot the importance of paper trail. and document
Girl.
everything. And I just got into the habit of doing that towards the end of last year because I had to gather my manager. So when you have everything in writing,
Mhm.
and, I put it, for me, I wrote out everything as if, let's say HR wants to know exactly what happened play by play. I wrote it exactly that way. And I put it in a PDF format and I sent it over to my manager with, in the body of the email saying like, so and so, as per our conversation, da 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 da. So when she finally, it took her days to respond to the email because I know she was probably livid. But once she responded back to me, she had to address every single thing I mentioned because she made some very offensive comments. And yeah, she
Now,
knew
did you share that with HR?
absolutely did.
Okay,
But
because
here's
that's important.
sometimes I feel like HR don't be for the little people. I feel like, and what I mean by that, like, is I can sit here and put in so many complaints, but just like I mentioned, my director of the department, he could be off the chain, but he's still sitting in that seat. He's still sitting in that seat. But the little people like us, we could put in the complaints, but let's say if they put in a complaint or they're trying to get you out the door, I feel like that's going to outweigh someone like me. That
I
claim
would say, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, when you are speaking with HR, you have to talk about the facts, right? Speak about the facts first, and then also how it's impacting your ability to work, how it's impacting the team. So I don't know the details of this case, but I have seen plenty of situations where somebody who is in a high position,
Mhm.
is like, I've heard stories of, leaders making employees cry, right? Have
Yeah.
I witnessed it? No. But have I heard it? Yes. And it's so unfortunate that when you are working at a company and you see these sort of behaviors at the top level,
Mhm.
and because I do think it starts with leadership. Like, leadership is supposed to set the example. So when you
Absolutely.
see leaders, demonstrating certain behaviors, it's like, how is this even allowed? And yes, HR can be tricky because I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Like, I've seen some HR leaders bypass a lot of shit. I'm like, why? Right? But then there's corporate politics, which we all know comes into play too. But I would say if the incidents are still happening, you keep bringing it to them. And
Okay.
then you keep a trail of like, these are how many instances I shared with you and you've done nothing about, right? And shit, sometimes you have to go to their boss.
Okay.
If your designated HR person isn't doing their job, escalate it. When
Oh,
you're not getting the service that you want at a restaurant, or what is the first thing people say? I want to speak to the manager. And
yep.
I feel like as Black women, when we are not seeing change or we are being mistreated or disrespected and it's not being addressed, escalate it.
Okay. Okay. I received that because like sometimes I feel like that's the ceiling, meaning HR, that's it. After I report whatever the incident that transpired, once I reported to them, I feel like it's in their hands now. So now that I know moving forward, if I need to like step over, let's say my director, if I need to go to their boss to have a conversation, then that's just what it is. It might be like some uh tension in the workplace,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, I have everything documented. So if they do try to fire me, it looks like retaliation.
absolutely. And we'll find you an employment lawyer. Okay, we'll find you one.
Okay, because yeah, it's just sad that a lot of people get away um with murder basically when they're in higher positions, and sometimes
Absolutely.
power goes to their head. It's just the mental gymnastics we have to do just to exist at work sometimes. It's like it's a lot.
It,
It's a
it
lot.
is. It really is.
So thriving and not just surviving in corporate spaces. So we know the struggle, but let's talk about how to thrive in these spaces. What's your strategy for finding your voice in meetings where you're the only Black woman in the room?
I think the strategy is not worrying about that you're the only Black woman in the room. And what I mean by that is if you hold on to that, you're going to approach it from a place of Black or like you don't belong. And I think the strategy in finding your voice is one, knowing that you belong in every room. Two, knowing that your ideas don't have to be perfect in order for you to share them. And
Okay,
then three, just understanding that no update is too small, no idea is too small. And I think the more we get comfortable with taking up more space in the room, right? Sharing our ideas, whether somebody likes it or not, and letting go of the perfectionism, I think the more confident you'll feel.
I received that. Because that used to, cause me to be super quiet in meetings.
Mm,
Even if I wanted to say something, I felt like I'm the only Black one here. They're not going to listen to me. But when it got to a point where like I needed to speak up, from that point, it was like the breakthrough. Now I'm very vocal in
I
meetings.
love that. I love that. See, I was used to being the only Black woman, the only, like, feel like I was the youngest in most of the rooms that I was in,
Mhm.
because I was like 21 meeting with senior leaders. So I think I
Yes.
had to find my voice, you know? Like I had to make sure that people were not thinking, "Oh, she's just this young girl," right? Because I learned early on, like through my first job, I remember walking into a meeting one time and somebody was like, "Oh, are you the new intern?" No, actually I'm not.
Ooh,
I'm not.
love it. Like, no, try again. That's not me.
I understand that I have a baby face, right? And I think that that allows people to underestimate me. But again, that's their problem, not mine. So I think when people see me, and one of my work aunties, she actually says this about me all the time. She said, when people look at you, they see this baby until you open your mouth. So she's seen me in meetings and she's like, there goes my girl.
Well, I love that. Let's get into the emotional side of it because let's be real, like, when it comes down to the mental and emotional toll, this type of stuff tends to weigh in on you. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome and how did you work through it?
Hell yeah. I think imposter syndrome hits me whenever I'm doing something new. I think the way that I work through it is one, not criticizing myself for having imposter syndrome. I try to get to I try to just ask myself, like, what is it that I'm actually afraid of, right? Like,
Mhm.
what is this voice in my head that's telling me or trying to convince me that I'm not good enough about this? Like, what are they actually afraid of? And I try to do a bit of journaling to really understand what I'm experiencing in that moment and why, right? So I think imposter syndrome, at least for me, I've learned to accept that when I am climbing new heights, right? When I am doing something that I have never seen done before, when I am going after a dream, there is going to be a feeling of, can I do this? Am I able to do this? Am I supposed to and who am I to do this? I don't ask myself anymore, who am I to do this? Because now I feel like, oh, girl, you know who we are. Like, come on, stop
Love
playing.
it.
But there was a time where I was like, who am I to do this? Right. I've never seen it before. And I think just getting more comfortable in knowing that just because I've never seen it before doesn't mean that I'm on the wrong path. And it damn sure doesn't mean that I'm going to fail at it. Right. Because my track record has showed, remember what I just told you, like, if there's an opportunity. If you throw me in the water, I am going to swim. I am going to swim. I may not be able to float yet, but I'm going to do whatever I can to swim.
Love it. That's a word. That is a word. And I think that imposter syndrome just it comes naturally like when you're in new spaces.
It does, and we have to give ourselves more grace.
Absolutely. And I'm learning that more and more each day. Like I love that you said, you had those moments of doubt, but then over time you're like, no, we know what we're doing. Like you are that girl, period.
Yes, and I think we have to remind ourselves that, and, like, one of the things that, I share with my community, so if anybody is on my email list, every quarter, we send out a brag sheet update to remind our community to update your brag sheet.
I've been
Update it.
actually using it from the Zoom session.
Awesome.
Yes. I mean, we haven't gotten much bragging rights, but it's a few things on there, but
Good.
continue to update because every win is like, should be accounted for no matter how big or small it is.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, my last question to you in regards to building community and lifting one another up, I would like to just end on a high note because we know the power of Black women supporting each other. Like it opens doors and it provides, I guess you can say, for me when it comes to Black women in workspaces, such as, for me personally being in healthcare, I felt like the network, even though the organization may seem big, on the admin side of things, it's super small. Like you could create your own village, right? So I just wanted to know what's one way you've seen Black women show up for each other in the workspace that really stuck with you?
Oh, okay. Like I mentioned my work aunties, but I think having a work sister,
Mm,
like that really changed the game for me. When I started my last company, a friend of mine, well, we are now friends, right?
okay.
She sat me down within like the first month, introduced herself, gave me the rundown on everyone I would be working with. And when I tell you, I was so prepared.
Okay.
She told me like the real stuff, like this person you may find challenging because these reasons. This person easy to love. Like and I felt like, wow, like she saw me, and I think what it's like signaled to me was that she saw me coming into a workplace that was predominantly white. She saw a black woman coming in, and I don't know, and she just instinctively knew, like, let me set her up for success. But I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much because that really showed me sisterhood in the workplace. And I think we should all do that. Like, we should all show up for each other, right?
Absolutely.
In the ways that feel authentic to us. I don't want anyone like self-abandoning, right? But in the ways that feel authentic to us. And there was one time where we were on, not this woman, but one of my work aunties. She wasn't my work auntie at a time, but this is how we became. We became close because we were in a meeting and this white woman cut her off in the story. And I was like, hey, I don't think she was finished speaking or sharing her thoughts.
Mm,
And by me saying that, because she didn't say it for herself, but I said it, right? Because I witnessed it. And I was like, no, 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 this ain't right. But she was like, when you said that, I knew we were going to be cool, right? So I think we have to I think sisterhood is a verb. Like sisterhood is action. So you have to show up in the spaces. And I've been blessed to have a lot of like work aunties, work sisters, people who have put me on. And I want to say to every millennial listening to this, we are the new aunties and uncles. Like
yeah. We
this is our time. We have to step up and like pave the way for Gen Z. And I think the more we lift as we climb, pick somebody else up. As you're climbing your corporate ladder, whatever you want to call it, pick somebody else up.
absolutely pass the baton.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that your coworker, like she basically put you onto game.
She
And I
did.
feel like if a lot of people had that, opportunity, it would have saved them from a lot of like stress. trouble, disappointments. Yeah, like because
Absolutely.
we know there's always that one person in the workspace, that one go hard, that one challenging person, the one person that likes to shoot down everyone's idea because they think their idea is better. Like we've all been there, done that. So I'm happy. Like your coworker basically took you underneath her wing and gave you the tea.
Exactly. I will say this, I have not like the coworkers that you're describing, maybe my boundaries are just like really strong, but I don't really come across them
Okay.
because I know they exist. Trust me, I know that they exist. I feel like people who view like let's say you have an issue with the coworker and you're like this person's giving me all these problems, all these attitudes. When I meet that same coworker, there's a total different energy. And at first I didn't understand it, right? But I learned this before and I can't remember who I heard it from. And I think I was maybe on a webinar or something, and the speaker said, power respects power. And I think that's why I don't have as many horrible experiences. Like I'm sharing how shit, my first, month on the job, this woman came to me and gave me the game, right? So I think I've been very blessed in that sense, but I also feel like respect for me has always been non-negotiable. Always.
Yeah.
Some of the cattiness, and I've had catty coworkers. I've had to check a couple of coworkers and I've dealt with it, but I'm like, all right, let me just check this real quick so that way we can move on. I think that we have to do more of that. We
Yeah.
have to do more of telling people this ain't gonna work for me. Telling people, yeah, I'm not sure what made you say that, but it was offensive, and here's why.
I
And then
love
also just telling people, like, there's another way you could say this. There's another way you can get your point across. Because
Oh
when people
yeah.
be doing all that hollering and yelling, like, I've had people come to me saying that, this coworker screamed at you.
Yeah.
This man raised his voice at me one time, and it was a people leader I was working with. He said he got really loud about something, and because he was frustrated, because in HR sometimes you have to tell people no. And I was like, "Would you like to regroup? Like, would you like to revisit this conversation?"
What did he say?
And he was like, "I'm so sorry. It's
Yeah.
not you. Yeah, take that down."
Gather
Take
yourself.
it, get down. And then another man said to me one time, he's like, I really didn't appreciate how you said this. And I was like, that's okay. You're allowed to be upset.
Oh shit. I'm sorry.
You're allowed to be upset.
I love it. I'm sorry. I love it. I love it.
And I was like, that's fair. That's fair. But if you think I'm going to take your feedback and internalize it as if I did something wrong, get the fuck out of here. Excuse my
Yeah.
language. But
No.
no,
It's
no.
kind of like, gaslighting. Like, no, that's not what we're not gonna do. Like, you feel how you feel. Okay, great. But don't try to make it seem like I did something wrong and you're
Exactly.
apology. Absolutely not, because you're not gonna get it. That's just what it is.
Like, no. And I think sometimes people try to intimidate you, especially with their titles.
Yeah.
Like, people love to throw around, I'm the senior director of this. Great.
Oh, that's my director. Like we just in our
Great.
sessions.
I think when people have to lead with that, they're insecure.
Very
They're
insecure.
really insecure because if you have to lead with your title and not who you are as a person, I don't know. Feeling like it's given insecure.
No, like I do think that it gets insecure. Or you could have been, I hate to say this, but like you weren't in the in crowd growing up. So now that you have like status, they
Mm.
tend to abuse it when they get into power.
Yeah. Or they could honestly just, I feel like there's so many people out here in this world just doing what was done to them, and it just
Yeah.
pisses me off because why not define leadership for yourself? If you had a leader who was mistreating you, why mistreat other people? Why not wake up and say, you know what, I really didn't like this, but there has to be another way.
Yeah. I love that, and I appreciate the transparency and the examples that you provided. Like Shanae, this was everything. Like thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you for having me.
Because this was like therapy for me. Like thank you so much for coming on. and dropping all this wisdom because I feel like a lot of women listening are going to feel so seen and understood after this conversation. Like, is there a gem you would like to leave the listeners with?
Yes, I tell everybody this. Take up space.
Hmm.
Like, you are in that room for a reason. You are in that position for a reason. Do something with it. Let them know you're there for a reason. Take up space.
Take up space. Yeah. I'm slowly learning to do that as of 2025. Not being scared to speak up in rooms that I'm already in. Um and not having to, dull my light subconsciously. Like sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it, but like,
Mhm. You're shrinking. Yeah.
yeah, making yourself like fall into like, just being okay with being in the background. And it's like, no, I worked too hard to get to this point in my life. I got 2 degrees.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a reason why I am here. So therefore, let me
Absolutely.
act like it. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for this.
Like I said, as you're speaking to the listeners, you're speaking to me too. This was like therapy because it's so relatable to, currently what I'm doing right now at, in work. So I'm just taking it one day at a time. I don't allow it to affect my mental anymore. I leave work at work, and when I come home, I'm home. That's it. So
Love it. I love it. No, that's awesome. And if I could just leave one more
sure.
um tip, because I'm sure people listening to this, as we are talking about Black women in corporate and they may be struggling to find their voice. I do have a 3-month leadership coaching program for women who want to find their voice. They want to learn how to advocate for themselves, but also learn how to lead and
That's
lead well. So to find more information about that, you can go to nocreaminthiscoffee.com/coaching and find out more information about our Bold Moves Career Accelerator.
love it. And I was just about to ask you to drop your handles of if you have any more information you
Yes.
want to provide for the listeners so they can find you.
Yes, I am on LinkedIn. You can find me as Shanae Brown. There is another Shanae Brown on there, but I am an executive coach and the founder of No Cream in This Coffee, so you'll be able to find me there. And also follow No Cream in This Coffee on Instagram because that's where I drop a lot of the nuggets on how to navigate your daily life in terms of work. So I think that would be a good resource to your audience.
Thank you so much, Shanae. I can't stop thanking you because this is going to be super helpful for someone that's just probably just dealing with a lot day in and day out in the workspace. So, yes, guys, please follow Shanae. Follow her on Instagram, connect with her on LinkedIn. We need to start honing in on like the community that we're creating in the outside of the workspace for us as Black women. Shanae definitely creates a safe space for all of us to be seen and heard.
Thank
And
you.
I love it. I love it. So, and to my listeners, if you ever had to deal with like, any microaggressions, imposter syndrome, or just the daily struggle of being a Black woman in corporate America, I hope you feel a little more validated today. Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let me know how you navigate corporate life as a Black woman. So until next time, remember you belong in every room you step into. Bye.
Thanks.